Welcome to the Mystery Channel, where the veil is thin and the echoes of ancient knowledge speak through myth, magic, and the turning of the cards.
Well, thank you for that compliment. I'm shocked because you're a superstar, so it's just an amazing thing to hear. I've watched you teach. When we were teaching with Rana and you were able to move cards around digitally and show things, I was able to learn in a way that through other people, it just wasn't accessible to me. So yeah, that thing, I appreciate your saying that. I just never.
Yeah, and I've been always a big fan for you in that regard, because I often tell this when I was doing the dishes, when I was living in my other house. My wife's like, yeah, it's like maybe it's almost like, yeah, more than 15 years ago, and that you had like that. That's always something strange, because there was Joe Rogan for me, and there was like Donnaleigh with your tarot tribe. Yeah. Well, actually, you were one of the first in that regard to do something podcaster-like, isn't it?
It was even before. I mean, I ended up getting a good microphone, but the platform I was on, it was very conducive to the good quality sound that you can get now. But there wasn't really a lot of competition out there in terms of teaching tarot and cartomancy, Lenormand, whatever it is I wanted to talk about. There were only very few things. So I've been bouncing it around in my head too. When I was doing the podcast, there was something about that and the teaching element of it and the audience that I could reach. That was one of the most fulfilling periods of my life. Even though my personal life at that time was difficult, I was in a marriage back then that was different than the one that I'm in now. And there were struggles behind the scenes for me personally. When I think of those years, my escape into the podcast and the ways that we could teach and reach and encourage people to use things like tarot fulfilled me in a way that's been hard for me to duplicate with other, even digital ways. I really wanted to bring respect to tarot. I felt that there was not always a respectful conversation when people were talking about it. If they asked me if I did it, it was always kind of tongue in cheek. Do you really do that? Kind of a little condescending. And I'm like, this has been an extremely important tool for me in reforming all manners of my life, looking into things, exploring things about myself and the people around me. And I really I wished I'd learned it when I was younger, like when I was in high school or even a little younger than that, because I really think this is a tool that if it were accessible to more people, they could better their lives and understand things better and understand themselves better. So that podcast time was important. And I have been kind of knocking around the idea of doing another one, but there's some things about the podcast that I don't want to repeat again. I would do it differently a little bit than last time, but I also found that the bigger it got, like I never wanted fame. I was just talking to a friend about this morning. Like when I did it, I really wanted to just have more people find tarot and experience it and learn that there's not one way, one manner, but to experience it your way and what it meant to you. But what I found is the bigger it got, there were people that wanted to be on it that I didn't necessarily feel were. But I wouldn't have known that if I didn't journal, because you assume you remember the way you asked the question.
Yeah, that's so true.
Do you have to be in the right headspace maybe to get the ultimate information out of it? So if you are not in such a good place, emotional or mentally, that it's much more difficult to read the cards, especially as if it's your own life mapping out in front of you. How do you see that?
I 100% have fallen into that, where when we are almost in a triggered state, or if we're worried about something, or if someone did something hurtful to us and our head is still spinning from it, and you put the cards down, you may find yourself leaning into the doom of what it could mean. Lenormand is not quite as bad because it's not so, doesn't have as much like elbow room. And tarot, one card can kind of spread out. And that's another thing where you have to be specific when you're in those triggered states to ask those questions. Like, don't just say what's happening, because then it's like, is it what's happening within me? Is it what they're doing to me? Because if I get the 3 of Swords and I'm like, oh, they meant to hurt break my heart. But the truth is maybe it meant your heart is breaking, but it may not be what they intended to do. So make sure the question you ask reflects, where is this coming from? Or is this the result of something? Am I looking into myself? Am I looking into what they're feeling? And some readers don't like to read other people's feelings. For me personally, if it has to do with the situation or if there's a relationship, both of them, it's both happening and causing that thing to happen. So for me, that is an appropriate question in a reading. If they're asking me, like, why is my husband doing this? And it's like, well, let's take a look at what the cards say and what he may be perceiving. But the work comes from within us.
Yeah, and I do think so.
Oh, yeah.
And what
we
about
can't change other people?
That the cards have a life on their own? There are also so many people who believe that somehow perceived as an oracle. But there's also different stances on that in regards of, like here in Europe, often like an oracle is an oracle. And cards can, in that regard, be seen as an oracle, as something, a device that you somehow cast in whatever form that you read, whatever your fortune is. So, but often people also think that the oracle has a life on its own. Do you believe
the oracle has what?
That the oracle has a will on its own, that the oracle somehow, or is it that we do, or that it's just, how do you see that? Is it just fate and you throw something random out and then it's your human genius that somehow reads a story in that? How do you see that? I don't know if there is a one-way answer, but I'm curious how you see that.
Where does that come from? That's always, to me, the big question. It's like asking, what is God? What is God? What is goddess? What is spirit? It depends who you ask. But it's funny because I've made comments in the past. It's like, isn't it so weird that the cards knew that? And people would comment underneath saying, as if that wasn't you that was doing it the whole time. But I really feel like I depend on these to get the answer. So, I mean, I can feel things and know things about people. And I really feel like there's another element to when we work with cards and when we work with people, that whole empathic thing, what we feel and understand about people without even looking at a card is one thing. But there's some things that I can't know, like, will the house sell? Will they make the move? I can get gut feelings, but the cards are where I go. Where it comes from has always been, to me, I feel like I've always said it's like a synchronicity that you're putting there. And someone had called it once, and I wish I could credit the person I heard say this, because after I thought that for years, I've heard them define it as it's like summoning a synchronicity. And like, that's it. It's like you're asking for a synchronicity to happen before you when you're shuffling and you're holding an intent in your head. You're thinking the question, thinking this kind of summoning. Is it from an ancestor? Is it from a spirit? Is it from within me? Am I just connecting with some kind of universal energy where now I'm tapping in and I'm putting it to the cards? There's no way to know today where that comes from, but I've been through it enough to know that I can trust it. Yeah. And there are still times, even after all these years, so I'll put down a grand tableau, and there are still ways you can, when the person gives you nothing to go on, those cards can mean different things. The child can mean a literal child. It can mean a start of something. It can mean innocence or naivete. which way do you go? So there's a little bit of risk, and I feel there are times when I go back to when you first start reading and you have imposter syndrome and you think like, I can't do this. This is so much here, that really, if people just start in a small spot and just branch out and just keep checking in with the person, that's probably the best way to do it in small steps. But there are still times that I look at a grand tableau and I have nothing to go on, and you're like, all right, which way are we going to go with this card? Because it could be this or it could be that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it means both, and both are accurate. I say this to people in many, many readings. This could mean two things, and both can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's often also what life situations are. It's and, not and or of this or that.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And that's why I love when I do the card reading I do most with Lenormand is, it's a 3-card reading, and it has 3 cards underneath it that are the houses. And that's something that I created because I come to depend on the houses in the grand tableau, but there was no way to do it in a small little chunk like that. So I created the houses underneath it. And I feel even within the context of, say, a love reading, you can read it one way and it means something, and then you can add more. Like maybe the Tower is also, it'll be a long period of time. Or maybe it's also someone has boundaries or is very militant in the way they do something. But it could just be this is like a long-term thing. You could read it different ways. So oftentimes I'll read something one way, and then I'll do another one and say, this also can indicate da 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 da, or sometimes the bear can mean this. So the bear can mean, your job, or it could be being confident and strong with something. It could mean the mother figure. It could mean like all these things. And so you can add all those steps. Once you get to the big thing where they want the answer, you can say, here are other things, other nuances this reading could be trying to tell us. And all of these may have elements of truth in them for you. They land like, I remember Rana George, we were doing a conference together, and she said, it's like a Sudoku, like they land exactly right. And there's no way if you in your head tried to put them down so that it was right, that we could do it as well as they did, which seemed to be random, but they come up exactly the way they're supposed to. That's perfect.
I am noting that because she is on in a few weeks. So we have all the great cartomancy celebrities on our show. So Rana will also be there. So I will note it down that I hear an insight.
Yeah, she's the best. And another thing I love about her is years ago when I was in the Lenormand community, there were these different camps that set up, and it was really hard to pull people together. And she was like, she was very open to like, come on in, learn this. You can do this. Very positive. And her whole generosity of spirit and willingness to teach in the midst of all that stuff that was the politics of what was going on. She's such a generous spirit. She's so gifted at what she does. And I continue all these years later I watch her in awe, because I always feel like she was one of my first teachers. I learned first from Iris Trepner, and I downloaded her classes, but they were in German. So I had to Google Translate, and it was kind of weird back then. But I got the gist of what she was trying to say. And I remember sitting like poring over these grand tableaus and trying to follow, what she was doing. And then Rana, what she did is she helped me reel myself in and say, no, that's tarot. Like you're doing the tarot thing. Like step back and simplify it a little bit. And it kept me on this like path that was much clearer for me. So I always think of Rana as one of the first real teachers that I had who helped to redirect me when I felt like I was kind of wandering off the path a little bit. And I love how she just wants to help people.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's amazing.
And she's a personality as well as you are, and in that regard, women have an advantage in this profession because you all can have more, as we say, grandeur, like more, yeah, being more like a personality. And I think the more theatrical, the better in that regard. If you can imagine, like Madame Lenormand would have been, and if you read those real inside stories that she somehow was befriended with the director of a Parisian theater, and she bought stuff in order to make her place eerie, and she had like a mirror where you could watch inside, and you saw the other room, and there were like strange shadows on the wall and all that, Yeah,
Wow.
the more
Wow.
theater you can put in that regard to make it a real experience. That's also
Wow.
something like cartomancy, or like, there's also something to say for the experience in general, something that it's moving inside something. Yeah. And it does not even have to be true to be real. I think it's like a real experience. That is the impact of a
Like an
spiritual
atmosphere.
impact. Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Aesthetic.
all that's all in the game in that regard.
Yeah.
She was fun like that. Oh,
Yeah. I mean, I think there's some men that I think could do a really good job of that. There's certain things I look for that it just sing to me that other people might look for something different. And I think people find, the people that they should be around. I find sometimes if people like are complainers and complaining, I don't really get as much interest in that. But there are other people that like revel in that and they want the argument and all that. It's not my thing. So sometimes I feel like I may be a bit boring to people in the fact that I don't want to instigate and I don't want to fire up. I even concern myself with too much with politics because my biggest thing is I really feel tarot has a place for everybody. And I have my political opinions for sure, but I also don't want to turn away someone who might be doing some self-reflection to help us meet more in the middle and turning them away because I've made some kind of a comment or something while they were in a learning process or a development process. I'm not perfect either. I'm sure there's things that 10 years from now, if I were to look back, then I'm like, yeah, I really could have learned more back then about, what I know now. But that's what humans are, right? It's like you just keep
I think that's a
becoming.
normal evolution. If you don't look back every 5 or 10 years and seeing how ignorant you were back then it's not good either.
There was no growth.
Stagnation.
That means there's no growth. I agree with you, Bjorn. Yeah. And I'm not young anymore. I'm at the point now, and I'm retired from my medical job, so I can put more into this. But I also, it's the interesting thing when we were talking about women, I see many young women, and I can see myself in them when they come to me. And the way that you think when you're young is not the same way you think when you're older. Especially when you're looking for relationships and what is expected or how you don't realize at that age how much you can project your wishes onto another person and think that's them. Now, that's not just a young thing. We can do that when we're older too, and it's natural to do that to some degree. But when we're young, it's much more wide open for that to happen and to see the good in people that we may project as being there. And the hard thing is, and I tell people all the time when that Tower card comes up, it's like, that's a that's a hard card to go through because you have to twist around everything you thought you knew. And now you realize it's not what I thought. It's something totally different. And wisdom comes from it. That's the benefit. But wisdom is a hard teacher. It's not easy. And it can hurts because of what the dream that we had is no longer.
These are wise words.
Oh, yes.
That's exactly.
No.
That's the way it goes. Yeah.
Oh, it's so true. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Especially with relationships.
Yeah, for sure.
And it doesn't even have to
Especially.
just be love relationships. They can be someone we thought was a dear friend. But there were people that I didn't want. They had things that didn't necessarily reflect the goals of the podcast, or they wanted to announce things. And I'm like, this is really a show about education. Like, what can you teach? Well, you don't do that with others. Well, yeah, I do every time. So, and then there were people, if you have to set a boundary and say like this, it's not really reflecting the goals of the show, they would feel personally rejected, which wasn't my goal to reject anyone, but it started having, there was more to it behind the scenes. And there came a point when I thought, this is probably causing more problems for me at this time than benefits. So I wish they were still up. We lost a lot of them. There's only a few of them up. I have recordings of them all. So I always thought, if I brought out a podcast, I would edit them down so they wouldn't be 90 minutes. I would want them shorter and call them classics or something, and just let people re-experience them, or people who have never had the opportunity to hear those. They're still relevant. Everything that was said in them is still relevant today. But yeah, it's just things we knock around in our head. But it was nice to have you along for the ride. I appreciate that you were there for that experience.
Yeah, and I was always I still remember that I was always doing the dishes back then, still with hand. So now I said to my wife, okay, just stay there and I can listen to this podcast and I will do the dishes. So that was the moment for myself. So I somehow linked you to the dishes.
She loved it because you would do the dishes. That's perfect.
Yeah, so now I always listen, but that has been a long time, it's more like 15 years, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been about 15 years since I stopped, and we were doing them for about 5 years. So it was a long period of time ago when I started doing them, and the technology has changed. And if you can give me any tips on how to do a podcast today, I'm all ears. You can give it to me, because but I would do it on a smaller scale. But I do think that podcasts, I love podcasts. I mean, I listen to podcasts about a lot of different topics, but when you're driving, commuting, cleaning, going for a walk, and you just want something auditory, even when I exercise outside, I have a water bike that I go out on, and just put a nice podcast. I want to learn something or listen to something, and it's nice to be able to experience the world and have it at your ears. I love it.
Yeah, you did really some great things, and I think that you somehow cannot even see the impact that you have on this community. But I always find that you are really a community builder. And that's also you can ask Morgan how eloquent that you always was with people, and how I know how wise that you are, but you never bragged. You were always, and I really like that. You did so many great things, the creativity. It was you who find out those, like, with the Petit Lenormand games, like 1 + 2 or 2 + 1. So these cards, and if you turn them around, that was very revolutionary. It was brilliant. And, you were really able to somehow, put people in action, and you still do it. And even though somehow my cartomancy days are over, I'm still interested in all that. I want to talk about it, write about it, but the only times, and then you somehow come through my feed, and I still am triggered, and I always feel, okay, it's nice. What do I think for this moment with those 2 cards that you say, either from Tarot or Petit Lenormand or whatever? So all things who came from you, and afterwards, anyone did it.
I'm so touched. That means so much to me, and I can't even express to you how meaningful that is to me. One of the things that people have told me, that what I brought to them was I could take something that might have seemed complicated or complex or had many layers and just distill it down to the simpler steps. And what I look for when I'm learning something is I need that simplicity to start with and small steps. So that means a lot to me, Bjorn. I thank you for that. And just to know now, because I didn't know you back then, and to know now that you were listening, because you do Lenormand differently than I do it. And you're a very intelligent man. You do a lot of different systems. And I always feel like I'm learning from you. For me to take a moment and think that there may have been a time when you felt you were learning from me means the world to me. And the nice thing about tarot is it reminds me a little bit of when you read a sacred text. Like, you may have 5 people in a room and they may read something, and based on what they're going through in their world, their personal life at that moment, they each take a little something different from that paragraph that might be meaningful to the context of what they're in.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like tarot and Lenormand really do that, is they take the context of where we are and they reflect it back to us. And a lot of times, as you know, when we're doing readings for people, they look in awe, like, how could you have known that?
Yeah.
But it's there, it's right there. I really feel that if anybody wanted to learn to do this, it's accessible. This is not some great mystery that, only a few select few can have access to. I feel like this is something for all of us to grow through, and we might each do it differently. And what I love about that is, like, what you're telling me with the podcast is, even though you were fluent in some things, when other people have their own fluencies, you learn the nuances, and you can say, like, come on over here. You can, like, join my little techniques and add these other tidbits to it. And I find that when I listen to other people, like, they might see a certain thing in a card or use a different word to describe it, and I think that word is, like, the best. I hadn't ever considered that particular, like, nuance to it, and it adds a whole other depth. Like, I find the Tower card is like that. When I hear people describe different things and what it might mean, like, that's just adds a whole other thing that you can add and learn from.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. It's like your own therapist, isn't it?
It is like therapy. Isn't that the strangest thing? And there have been people, and it's not unusual for clients to say, like, I just felt like you've uncovered more in 10 minutes. I had a testimonial once where she said, you just uncovered more in 10 minutes than my therapist did in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But we do have to be careful, because we aren't therapists. Some people are trained to be therapists, but the capacity of the tarot and the Lenormand is a different delivery. And I feel therapists could use strategies, and some do, but most don't. Could use strategies using the imagery in it to help people identify, what are you feeling right now, or what do you think this other person's going through, and find the images, or what is it that your goal is. And they might know, I don't know what my goal is. So let's take a look. Like, let's look to the images. What do you want for yourself? And just have them kind of riffle through them and find the image that matches. And there's nothing about like fortune telling with that, but it is about self-discovery and seeking more depth. When you don't have a goal, it's hard to manifest, and because you're just wandering, you don't really have a point of light to look toward. Like that star card in Lenormand, I think, is always a great navigator, because it gives us that thing that we can aim for and reach for, and then you get there, and you'll get there in the shortest route possible because you see it and you're aiming for it. But if you don't see it, let's say the clouds are over it, this is life when you don't know what you want. You're kind of all over, and you end up in this other place. And a lot of people aren't sure what they want.
Yeah.
So
if I'm listening very carefully to you, do you want to say that it's such a merit that people can have a tangible image in front of them that you show them as a cartomancer? Is that what you want to say? Or
You are talking about mirrors and how it reflects back?
Yeah, but
Mhm.
the other way,
I
as a
often,
therapist, it can say a lot of stuff, but then it's somehow in the air. But here, maybe is a big advantage that you can also make it tangible, that you can see,
yeah,
okay, here is this card, and there's this eerie atmosphere, and it's hanging over that card, which should be a good card. It's like a shadow casting over your sun, something like that. That has a merit to open up something, or what do you think that's behind that?
right. So if you're reading someone, say it's a tarot reader, or if you want to call it fortune telling, there's this way of doing it. And if you're working as a therapist, there's this way of doing it. If I'm working with someone, sometimes they're like, just tell me what you see. And if they don't have a question, what I start doing is talking about their world and explaining to them, okay, have you had this done before? Every reader is a little bit different. And what I see when I work with the cards is tarot is a great mirror. It reflects back to us our patterns and the way we've been doing things. So it starts to show us what we've been doing, where it's going, and where it will likely end up as we continue those patterns. And right in the middle of that, I have an advice column, which shows us whether you should continue the pattern or maybe consider breaking the pattern. So I'm more like telling them. When you're reading cards like that, that's kind of what they go to look for. They want information. And I can ask questions like, is this something that makes you happy? Do you want this? And see, let them choose what they want. So I'm not telling them, what's best for them, unless there's something in here that's really saying something might be toxic for them, and to really look deeper at that. A therapist may do something like, if they have a trigger and they're not understanding why they're being triggered, the therapist may say, let's look at these cards. Like, how do you feel when you're having a trigger? And they may go through them and find the image that maybe it's the 5 of Swords, where someone is feeling like a battle, an argument, and they're turning away. And are they the one in the front that's fighting, or are they on the one that's back that's like maybe flight,
Yeah.
departing, trying to escape from it, the conflict? And to talk about more, it's like, why do you think you're escaping, and where does this come from, and looking deeper. So there's more of a exploratory language with the person. And there are some readers I know who do readings similar to this, and they're not necessarily therapists, but it has a very therapeutic feel to it. So but a therapist also can use the cards as mood setters, mood identifiers, feeling labelers, trying to like get people to explain situations when they may not have words for it, or may have difficulty talking about it. Much that I'm thinking about right at the moment, when there's pediatrics and they go through something traumatic physically with someone, and they give them the doll and say, point to the body parts if they don't have the words for it, if it's embarrassing for them to say it. And in the cards, when people are going through therapy, there's often elements of shame in what they're going through, and or what they experience, and that's often what like is the fire under the trigger. Is there maybe shame, embarrassment, or trying to deflect something? So trying to work with the images can be a safe way of explaining or defining what we're going through in a human way, without having to dig in and find that moment of shame. It kind of like rises up and is just there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting world, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, everybody that comes to us, some people come in and they're just curious, but I would find the majority of people that I see are going through something, and they want to understand why it's happening to them, or what's the purpose of this, what should they do, or what will it look like. And will often they're surprised when I ask them, all right, let's look into your future, where it will be. I says, what's your timeline? And they have to stop and think like, oh, like, are they thinking 4 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years? And often they don't even have that goal timeline. So it kind of starts the process when they're in their heads like, well, what do I want 6 months from now? Or when do I expect this to change? And it isn't unusual for, if I do a reading and we look to the timeline ahead, maybe they want to start with 6 months and they see that it's not likely to change. And then we look a year and then 2 years. And then we start talking about what is it they want and how to kind of break the stuckness. I think if there's ever a mistake to be made by a reader, it's to leave them with something heavy without giving them something to work with. So I always appreciate when someone leaves my table and says, you know what, like this was, I cried, but like it was so poignant to me, and I understand my situation so much better, and you've given me hope because I now know what to expect or what to work toward. And it's that hope that we're looking for. And the hope might be different for different people. It may not mean the hope that this terrible marriage is going to shift, but it's the hope that they might be able to do something to improve their own life despite what they're going through, and what that hope looks like. That's different than the hope they were giving before, that maybe they can't change the person, but maybe they can make other changes for themselves that would give them that ray of hope.
Yeah, I've got you. And hope is life in the end.
We have to have hope.
Yeah.
When we lose that, we feel helpless, and it can actually bring us into a point of depression, like we can't change. So it's really important. And I've been in those places. We all have. It's a human thing when you recognize something, there's radical acceptance about a situation you're in, when you realize this is wrong for me, or this person is not what I expected them to be, or they said they were going to change something and it didn't, and you see their behavioral patterns. It really does bring it to a point of clarity. And that's what I think when a lot of people come to us, they're getting clarity on it. And I feel like tarot is more like a soul journey, and the four suits really tell us all the facets of just being human, our feelings, what we're thinking about, how that creates our reality with the pentacles and the behaviors and the things we accumulate with the things we do. And I feel that our cups with the feelings, wands with the inspiration, or the constriction of inspiration in some cards, or if you read reversals like I do, you can see when it's like the light is dimmed. I mean, all of it is just all the parts of being human. And the older I get, Bjorn and Morgan, I find that I have more of appreciation for the fact that our outer world is a really strong reflection of what's going on in our inner world. And that two people can watch the same thing, and one can be in a state of crisis and see it as a terrible thing, and the other one can have a stronger affect or emotions or perception, and that same thing looks very different to them. And the confidence in which we can do things is reflected by our inner world. And those things can change, day to day, sometimes even moment to moment. If you see something that really shakes you, it can really change your percept. But the inner world is so much reflected by how we perceive what's around us. And that's one of the things when you're reading tarot, one thing to really look at, and you can do this without changing anything else that you do, is look at the spread you're doing. And we often look at it, this is what's happening to me. So you look at those cards and you can see like all the different facets, and whatever that spread position is, this is what's happening to me. And then take a look at it like, this is what I'm thinking. Or even what the other person is experiencing, if it's a relationship reading, because now it's a shared experience on that card. And you think it's just you, but the other person shares that. So there's so much more in those cards than what we first look at. Because if we see a negative card, let's say the Tower comes up for a daily card, we may find ourselves thinking something like, oh my God, like something terrible is gonna happen. I gotta make sure I'm careful on the road. I gotta make sure this, that. And we're thinking of something's going to happen to us. But it could just be the way we're thinking could get like twisted around and redefined that day. And so you may want to think a little bit different, like this is maybe my inner story, and what can I do to help offset that to get yourself started in the beginning. It's like, oh, if I'm going to have this like little tower twist in my head, like, all right, so plan ahead to make sure that you know that when this happens, ground yourself, do these, whatever techniques or strategies that you use for yourself. But it may not necessarily only be that it's a thing that's happening. It might just be a reaction within us that we have more control over than we actually give ourselves credit for sometimes.
Yeah. So who would Donnaleigh have become if you had never encountered the tarot cards?
Some things about myself, I think, like I would enjoy nature and other things, but I don't think I would have as strong a pull to psychology and the understanding of the why people do things. It would be, I would have that for the people I love in my immediate environment. But I don't know that it would mean as much to me for the motivations beyond my circle. That's a really interesting question. It's funny because I remember the first time I interviewed Mary Greer, I asked her that question. And she says, it started so long ago, it's hard for her to imagine anything different. I started later in life than she did. I was in my 30s when I started. So I was already, my spirituality has definitely broadened and changed. I don't know, Bjorn, that's a really interesting question, and that's a big unknown. I had a separate job from tarot. I worked in a medical field with pediatrics, and I helped children here. But I never had the same drive and passion for that. On my lunch break, I would go into the booth where we would test people hearing, turn on my camera, and I'd start talking about Lenormand and do my videos in there because the sound quality of the booth was good. So while I was working on my medical job, I would have this idea like, oh, this would be like a cool thing to bring up because it might help people learn how to like read the cards this way. And I think of it and, so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it was fate.
So,
It had to be this way.
Yeah.
So and
Yeah.
how was your day? So you in the morning you stand up and then you do right away a card reading, or is there no fixed schedule for you?
My routine? Yeah, my routine. I do tarot every day for myself. So I exercise every day, even if it's just 20 minutes or a half an hour. And I always draw my cards. I usually rotate my decks. And I'll do tarot and I'll do one other system, whatever it is I'm working on or learning. I was doing Boolean for a while and I put tarot and then a Boolean or two Boolean and Lenormand. Lenormand I use for myself when I need to know answers, like yes or no, or what is their intention or that sort of thing. I really want it to be blunt, short, and I really feel it's super accurate and really clear. And tarot can be has a little bit more wiggle room in there. But it can lean toward positives and negatives too. I think that's why I love the Lenormand is because of the positive and negative aspects. It's so like, it's good, it's not. But in the morning I'll pull out my yoga mat and I'll do weights or whatever. And then I have a card going, I have a candle going so I can put any problems I have into the candle to let it pause in that space for me so I don't hold it, and it helps me just kind of clear out my head. And I do readings during the day. I'm limited. I don't want to market too much. I don't want to do loads and loads of back-to-back readings, but I have repeat clients and I like doing readings, and I do them about once a month in person here in the area. But if I am with a friend and they say they have an issue, I might say to them, this may sound strange, but would you mind if I took out the cards and we just look at this? And most of the time they're thrilled to get another perspective. I had a friend that I worked with in the medical profession and she was going through something, and we went out to eat. And I said, would you mind just if I took him out? I goes, would you be embarrassed? And she said, no, I would love it. That would be so meaningful. And for the next hour, we went through it. And she said, that was like the most incredible thing I've ever experienced. She said, I have a whole new appreciation. She goes, I don't know how you did that. She goes, but the words you were using. And that's when, it's good to educate them. It's like, this is not just something only I can access, like anyone can, but you have to have the interest and you have to put a little time into it. But I think with small steps, and I don't think you have to spend your whole day doing it, just little steps. Like I do it still every morning. I have that little card that I pull out. I love to sit in my room. I love to read about tarot. I have so many books about it. I love hearing different people's views on different cards and just getting different ways of putting them out or seeing things or experiencing. It's fun. There's something new. And I love that there's young people coming in and they have these great new ideas that I'm like, how did nobody think of this before? This is wonderful. I thought everything was used up and we'd never be able to find new stuff. So yeah.
I like that. I was gonna say it's going back too, because I finally did a deep dive into the Golden Dawn to see where it all started. And they even have ideas I never even thought about that aren't even talked about today. So it's very fascinating to see originally what people were doing and how it was layered that way. So yeah, I like learning it too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I find and different people are doing, like now there's a couple authors that are doing reading tarot and they call it like a grand tableau and how you can read different rows to mean different things. And I think like that's really interesting, like to add all those extra layers. I've read tarot and grand tableau, but I read it like Lenormand or Lenormand. I didn't read it in its own way. I wanted to see if it could be done, I think it's a lot unless you have single keywords for the tarot because the Lenormand is just emblems. It's just one short concept, but the concept has some wiggle room depending on the context of what you're asking. If it's a health reading, it means something very different than if it's a location reading. Where is something versus if it's a job reading and then the house for me becomes an office space. If the square of the house is like a cubicle or office space with the people that you're in your workspace with, it no longer has to do with family. So the context can jump based on, what you're asking about. But it's amazing that something like those 36 cards can do all those things.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
it's always amazing. Yeah.
It's so much fun. It's just fun. And you learn, you get a piece of something you take with you. It brings great clarity and, you can go forward better. It did change when I was in that previous situation in my past marriage. And it's funny, I journal a lot. And particularly if I'm going through stuff, I write stuff down. And that's one of the things I do with tarot is I have the ritual planner that I use. It's a brand is Ritual Planner, and you put your cards down. But sometimes I put in other systems other than just tarot. And then you write what it means next to it. And if I'm learning a new system, I might use the book to go with it to help me or figure it out first on my own and then see what the book has to say. That's a way to keep broadening it. But I was writing journals back then every night because there was just nobody to talk to because the marriage just was not a good one. So I kept those notebooks. They were just cheap $1, like little notebooks, but the bigger version. And I would always write the date. I would write the cards that I got, even if it was just abbreviated, like Queen of Swords might be Q with a little picture of 2 lines for a sword and a handle.
Nice.
Or a heart, but I wrote down my interpretations of them, and then I had so many of them, I put them in a box, like a big plastic tub. And when I left there and moved into my new home, by then, years had gone by, I met my new husband, And he's like, what do you want to do with all these notebooks? I'm like, what are they? And I looked through them and I'm like, oh, I need to go through these. And I started reading them and the dates of them and how close I was to the end of that. And they actually, and I didn't understand this at the time. And when I read them the second time years later, I had no memory of writing this stuff. But it told me what my life was going to be like, what the profession of the person was going to be like. And I don't even remember thinking ever of leaving, but I was just interpreting the cards of what this card could mean. And it just means this, that. And I was writing without even thinking of its application to me. So when I read this, maybe 7 years after, what I learned is I predicted my future for myself so clearly without realizing I was doing it. I was just escaping.
Yeah. That's always so fascinating. That's why I always think everybody should keep a tarot journal, a Lenormand journal, because you never know, looking back like 5 years where you started, seeing it differently as well through the eyes of, your growth, your transformation with the cards, and then looking back at the beginning. Because I'm always fascinated looking back on everything that I've done and seeing it now with my eyes of the person I am now instead of like 5 years ago.
Right. I agree with you. And you know what else I learned? I matured as a reader doing those, because if you ask a question and then you think it wasn't right in its answer, you go back and read your question and you'll find that the question you asked, it did answer it the way it actually came out, but I didn't ask the question correctly. I didn't say the right specifics. And what I thought I was asking, it literally answered it in the correct way. But what I was hoping that I thought I said was not. So when I looked at it, and like I learned I had to ask questions much more deliberately and specifically, not broad, really specific. Put trust in, and then you realize they weren't on your side, or you realize there was something there that was not in your best interest, so it happens to all of us. There's no one that will get out of this thing without having gone through that. And it can be painful. And what we learn from it does help us, if we do the self-reflection, helps us become better as we make choices in the future. And what I notice is sometimes it seems like our world gets smaller because we're pickier about who we let into the space. All this out here can still happen, but I'm only going to allow certain special people in the space now. And so it feels maybe tighter, and I don't want it to be like snobbery. It's not that. But trust is something that is earned. And when someone displays something, that's information too, and it should be used wisely. So not everybody should be trusted. And that was one of the lessons that I had to go through in my life. And I think a lot of women, and I think men too, I think it's a healing thing.
Everybody.
Yeah. And but I think the discovery of it, like, when you're wondering, like, what am I supposed to learn through this? That's where I think the cards are a great tool when we're seeing the problem to help us lean into how this will make me better. To redirect.
That's, you make something complex very simple. That's mastery.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. Yeah.
And do you think that, if I listen to you carefully, I think you are saying something like it's almost an ethical obligation to be self-aware as a card reader in that regard, that you know that you can project your own pains and your own hopes or whatever on your querent, or especially if you are reading for yourself, because you will be tending to read either your hopes or your biggest fears, something like that. At least that was something what was not my forte.
Yeah, both of those happen. The querent, I think there's a lot of times we have to be careful. The weird thing about tarot is when we read the cards, there's usually something in it for us too, even though we're reading another person. There's often lessons for us in there too, but we have to be careful not to put certain ethics onto another person that may not apply to their world. And when you mentioned about reading for yourself during a very sorrowful or triggering time, and how difficult that is the time when I will typically call a trusted friend who's also a reader and say, I may need some assistance looking into this. I'm a bit too close to this. And I'm really worried about it. Or if it's like something with someone you really love that you're close to and they're going through something, and it's like you see all the fears come out, your fears kind of bubble through. So that's when I will reach out to someone who may not even know them, but they're a friend of mine and they're good at looking into this, and like, can you just tell me what you would see in this? I just need someone that's a little more detached from the emotions than I am. And then you'll get some very good advice. And there was some, people have told me when I was worried about needing to get involved with something, they're like, nope, you stay out of it. Stay out of it. And I'm like, that's what I needed to hear. That's right. You're right. Yeah.
And then you listen right away. That is your sign to listen. You won't do it then.
Yeah.
If that happens, you will listen right away. You don't do your own thing. You just listen what the cards will say and you will go right by that? Or do you ever throw the advice aside?
When the cards give me advice, I usually listen, but sometimes I don't, and there are repercussions. So I'll give you a solid example. I'll give you an example that just popped into my head. So I was going through, this is before I retired, and there was a situation in the office with someone who was just highly toxic. She had some issues, very combative, a lot of lies behind. There was an investigation going on. So I asked, is there anything that could make this space between us work better? Because I was having a hard time with her. She was such a conflict provoker. She would come, she would yell in my face. And I'm like, what is it that I could do? And then the card said, you compliment her, flatter her, speak to her and raise her up, and that will make it better. And I was like, thank you. No thanks. And it would have made it better, I'm sure. But then I thought, you know what? I don't want to make this better. This is not a person that I want to be close with. And I didn't. And things did get worse.
Yeah.
And she ended up having to deal with that, not me so much. But so there are times when I don't, and I see what happens. When I was going through my marriage, so here's the thing. I hear a lot of readers say the same person keeps coming back to me and asking me the same question over and over. And I feel like, nope, it's going to be 6 months before I can answer that again. And I think, you know what? People need to process things. And when I was going through my situation, a part of me knew it was wrong, and that a part of me knew it would be better elsewhere. But when people are going through something, what they know has its own set of problems. What they don't know, or the change, has its own set of problems. What there is now, you have to buy something to live in on your own, and where is the expense from that going to come from? And because this person may do something with the money, or now there's a child involved, and it has its own, how are we going to sort this out? How will this reflect on the child? So there's the problems, the devil, and there's the devil you don't. Yeah. And sometimes people just want to know what if, or what would happen if, and they want to hear it. And when you tell them, it's still true what you're telling them, and they know. But it may take years before they get to the point when the problem of leaving feels less than the problem of being there.
Yeah.
And until they're at that point, they may not be ready to take the step of change. And I have tremendous respect for all of that.
Yeah.
So if the person asks the same question and wants to know if it will change, we can look into that. we can also look into what would be good for that person's self-care or to prepare for something like that, who they may need to talk to. And those are just the steps, the little baby steps. There's a great book out called Atomic Habits. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a thick book. But the condensed version I'll give you right now, that it's a really big lesson from it, is we learn to do by the things we do every day. The changes in our life have to do with the little consistent changes, whether it's exercising consistently, even if it's only like I do, like a short 20, 30 minutes a day, rather than a 2-hour workout that you do after January 1st because it's your New Year's resolution and you do it
Classic
twice.
one.
Yeah, right. But it's the Atomic Habits says small, tiny little measurable things that you can do, just something small that you can feel a moment of success. That's what, if you can give that person, they can do something, whether we're teaching this, something they can do with Lenormand that's really small. And they're like, oh, I could do like 2 cards or 3 cards or 1 card in the top. That's the topic. And these 2 describe it. That's like small. So it becomes more approachable, and life is exactly the same way. When it's big, it's overwhelming. When there's things that can be done where we feel success, that was a moment of success, and they can. So I try to have them leave the reading. That's the hope, is that little moment of success, something they can do, even if they're not ready to make the big move yet. Life can be hard. And some people have difficult situations that I think it's unfair to judge them for not being able to take the step yet, because there's so many big factors. There's so much more to that person than what we're seeing in the cards.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
You're totally right there. Nowadays I am a therapist, so I always see that in my cabinet. It's always about that, and there are certain situations where people are like, for instance, like in marriages, you know that you're not in the right place, but there is a lot of uncertainty. What if I step out of it? How will I get my money? And I will lose my house, and what will my kids say, and all that, and that's all more weight on your shoulders, and then you just go with it often, but
it's big. It's big stuff.
Oh yeah.
That's not light to take in that regard, and I don't know why you should not answer a question more times. It's also about the ripple effect. A little child that has a fear for something will also pull your arm, say, okay, Daddy, I'm afraid of this. Can you please, what are you about to say then? Shut up. That's not the way it goes. You try to comfort, you try to maybe, okay, let's make small steps and do things differently, so you feel that you have control in that regard.
Right.
If you cut off the connection, I think you lose your patient or client or whatever you name it. You lose the person.
And I think sometimes the brain really has to process a lot. And I remember going through some relationships or I remember in the past I was dealing with some very narcissistic type narcissistic personality disorder, not just in like, I'm big, I'm special, not just that. It was bigger than that. It was lies and jabs and smear campaigns and that sort of thing. I had a process like, why would somebody do that? Because I could not imagine feeling good about myself doing that. And then so I went into the rabbit hole of learning about narcissistic personality disorder and why they do that, until I really fully understand what a life without empathy felt like, and not really caring what other people thought or felt, because it was all for self-fulfilling what you needed to do at the expense of anything. And when you're an empath, it's really hard to twist your brain around, because we are always we kind of bend to what's around us. We understand how people are feeling, and we want to make sure that we're in more of a helping vibe. And I had to unlearn a lot of that too, because there was a lot of, I learned, and culture does this too, especially to women, with people pleasing and trying to satisfy everybody else at the expense of what was perhaps good for me. I was abandoning myself to satisfy the needs of other people around me. That's not good either. So learning about the narcissism was it took repeated videos of therapists talking about it and understanding different perspectives of it. And I'm like, yeah, like, all right, that makes sense to me and I get it, and keep learning until you really start to get it. And I think when people come to us over and over for readings, they're digesting and they're digesting and they get little pieces of their relationship and they're learning about it. And then they have to go home and they think about it and they've got to process it and experience it and make their own kind of judgment call from there. There was, I don't know if you saw it, was it Mary Greer that posted this? Somebody posted about what percentage of people have gone for a tarot reading. And it was a pretty big number, but they said that how many people actually use what they learn. And they said most of them tend to go just to get information and then they made their own decision afterward. And I do think a lot of people do that. And you'll find that there are ones that it really rings a bell when you're doing the reading. They keep coming back because there was something there that fed them, even if it was difficult information that helped them understand something a little bit better in a situation that's hard to process because it's not making sense because it's so uncomfortable. Why is this happening?
So it's about the impact.
I see.
It's about
definitely.
Yeah, that's a good one. Never thought about it that way. It sounds logically.
Do you use it in your therapy, Bjorn? When you said you're a therapist, do you use this tarot and Lenormand?
Well, nowadays, back then when I somehow, I always kept my interest in cartomancy, but to be honest, I was never fond of being a cartomancer. As strange that it might sound, and I did it for years, but I really never had a real, I had a love-hate relationship with that. You're
so good at it.
That's what I tell him.
But I never really enjoyed it, Donnaleigh. And
do you know why? Like, what was it that just was it interesting to do, or was it?
Yeah, I was always focused on symbols, I much more enjoyed how to find out late at night how the petit étayre works with a cup of coffee next to me. I had a much more spiritual experience, a much more mysterious experience than reading cards with people. I know that really sounds strange, but I had some really great card readings with people. But then it was also that I somehow had the feeling that it was for what it's worth, because as you know yourself, you often do not get the question, okay, will the knight in shining armor coming there, and maybe it's me, but I always had the big heavy cases. So assault, murder, crazy stuff, even things with criminal stuff and all that, and that's heavy stuff, and people lay so much weight on you to have the right questions and all that, and I somehow could not handle that as good as it should be. So I never really had fun with it, except for people who really said, okay, let's just take it light and see it as whatever extra information.
Yeah, I could see where that would be heavy. That would be really difficult.
Yeah. So I somehow quit with that. And when my books came out, I already quit with being a cartomancer. So I sometimes lay the cards for myself, but after that, so I came out of the coaching world back then, because I've always been in the martial artist and the martial art stuff. So I was doing with MMA, kickboxing, and all that. So there started my coaching business. So I really did that back there. So I had cartomancy, I had that, I had also a job. And then after that, I got into hypnotherapy and all that, so I did that for like 10 years. I have a very successful business in that regard. And now it gets again interesting to somehow put those two things together, therapy and mystery in that regard. So sometimes people now contact me, okay, Bjorn, can you do something with hypnotherapy and use tarot cards? And to be honest, that is really what I want to do. I like therapy, but I have used it, but not much in my therapy room. because that's also something, you know, I don't know how you look at it, but if you are like in a cabinet and you're doing like hypnotherapy or counseling or that, you know, sometimes it's strange that you do that in a very spiritual way. I find, at least, there's some in my head is something that has to be separated, but that's something with me, and I think I will throw that overboard in the future. I can feel it, but I don't use it yet as much as I should do, because I really know that there are a lot of chances in that regard. So I have read the
Oh,
card for years, and I see what that can do with people. So in fact, so you somehow divide it, and I understand that you're either of, yeah, you know, there's a difference in therapy and cartomancy, but I have this overall understanding of therapy. In the end, what is therapy? I think therapy is that what helps. And I've,
Yeah.
yeah.
in regards of therapy, I've done so much strange stuff, maybe. So I have this, I work for a lot of people out of business and all that, you know. And there are simply sometimes sessions where I put someone onto a dating site, help her out to find a new partner, you know. And that's something maybe that should not be for a therapist, but for that moment, that was what this woman needed, and she was really thankful to do that. And that was also a ripple effect to go to next stages. You see, so in the end, what is therapy?
Yeah, no, I definitely, oh, I'm sorry. I definitely agree too, especially using the tarot in every aspect because it's such a helpful tool with everything. Because I use it in my Akashic record readings and astrology readings, and it just kind of solidifies the message or adds to the message, especially what, like you were saying, with the energies of the situation and how to move forward from it. Because we do grow from people or we do need certain things, and it's just kind of there as that extra clarification tool as well
Yeah.
to get you through circumstances, you know.
Yeah, it's astounding to me, Bjorn, that the detail with which you go into the Lenormand, the details of the cards and how they're used takes an exquisite amount of time and learning, and that you could do it but not be motivated, and yet still it all went in, just kind of like blows my mind.
Yeah.
Because for me to put that kind of energy into something, I got to really, really love it. So I think that just speaks to your intelligence, you know,
That's
the
what I was,
depth
yeah.
and the detail.
And in the end, what is intelligence? You know, that's philosophy. But yeah, you know, but
Yeah.
that's something strange. I cannot understand myself often. So, but I
Yes.
also have to follow my heart, you know, and I want to be in connection. You know, I rather talk to you like this and find out how you experienced it. That's for me a much more, yeah, nicer thing to do, to talk about the subject of cartomancy, to swap experiences, you know, rather
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
playing out the cards. And maybe
Mm-hmm.
that sounds strange, you know, because a lot of people somehow were not happy with me. They somehow thought that I left the cartomancy scene, and somehow that it was like I should not do that, and that people cling to you in that regard, you know. But this is
Yeah, they come to
time, and
depend on you, I think, and you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Yeah, I had gone off the internet for 3 years, off of Facebook after COVID. I had digital burnout, and there were people that were upset, like, how could you do that? And I
Oh
get it.
no.
And even you had made a comment about when you're working with hypnotherapy and the depths of spirituality that you work with. There was a period of time, and I mentioned in the beginning that you said, what would I be, you know, if I didn't do tarot? And I mentioned like the impact that it had on my spirituality. But there were years in there where I consider myself very agnostic, even maybe atheist. But I really felt anybody could do this even without spirituality. Like I was still
Oh, yeah.
passionate about it because we're still humans. and we can still have empathy and care about other people, even if we don't believe there is divine guidance. If we still care about people, we don't need the rules of religion or dogma or, the spiritual thing. And then I started leaning back into it a little differently than I used to. And I would consider myself spiritual again. But again, that's like a semantic label thing that what is spirituality? Like you said, what is intelligence?
Mm-hmm.
It's a philosophical thing, and what people have, if it's somebody else's spirituality, it may seem cultish or superstitious maybe, but over here is okay. But then if you move over there, you realize people may define it then differently. So what is that? And that's, I think, one way we evolve. I think I used to think that, that's not spirituality, that's emotions. Like that is an emotional thing. And I have respect for all of it now, because I think it's just a matter of perspective and where people are. And I think more than anything, probably our spirituality over time can shift and morph and grow, change, come and go, depending on the crises we're going through.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I really felt there used to be a whole different way that I worked with spirituality when I was younger. And then when I went through tarot, and then there was a period of time where I'm like, I was afraid to tell anybody in the spiritual world, because I thought then that would cause judgment on me. I'm at the age now where I'm like, if it does, that's fine.
Yeah.
But, but I do lean into it more, and I do different things now related to spirituality alone, and, manifestation, and just what I want to put into the world is reflected in those activities, little rituals and things. And I felt it was good for my mental health as well, too. I feel like that stuff really helps us develop, to come back to ourself. And however people do it, I don't think even matters, as long as it's something for the good of themselves and others. Where people find it may change over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
very
can
wise
see that.
words. I'm surprised, aren't you, Morgan, that that Donnaleigh said something about
This,
so you also struggled with being spiritual and agnostic and all that. So that really does surprise me. Was always a big struggle for myself.
Oh, yeah. But I think people get caught up too much in spirituality versus religion, and they have to have that clear, it has to either be religion or it has to be spirituality. That's why those are two completely different concepts. And I always see the cards, the tarot cards, Lenormand, anything you want to use as being its own thing, no matter what your spirituality is, no matter what your religion is. Because I've read for Mormons, I've read for atheists. There's actually a good book out there called Spirituality in Atheism. So, I mean, you could do a deep dive with that even.
That sounds wonderful, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do believe, and I have a YouTube video up that says you have to be spiritual to read tarot. And I put something on my Facebook page and asked people that, and nobody said that you could read it and not be you had to be spiritual to read it, is basically what everybody said. And I had to really think about that, because that was a point in my life when I was really feeling like, I don't feel like that applies. It's human nature and feelings, but it doesn't necessarily require spirituality. A person had written to me asking me that question, gave me the opportunity to reflect on it, ask others, and then to speak about it. But in the video, I do mention, I didn't at that time say that I didn't feel like I was spiritual, and I don't think that it mattered that people knew that or not. But what I thought was important for people to know is that you can have no spirituality, and this can still be a meaningful tool for you psychologically, helping you understand things, make decisions. It doesn't even have to be used for looking into the future. It can just be experiencing the now differently and understanding it better.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And even understanding yourself better, living that clarity into yourself. Yeah, that's why I love the cards. Very telling. Very
So,
telling.
what can we and the listeners expect from you, Donnaleigh, the next 5 years?
This is what I've been struggling with, because when I was doing the podcast, it really did consume all my time, but I loved it. And being retired now, I really want to experience life and do things for myself and experience, but I still have that itch to teach and just to bring people, come on over. I want you to experience tarot. I would like to have classes as an area we go to in the winter that has a lot of people in the retirement community, and they have all kinds of activities, but no tarot. So I did want to bring that there. They had one psychic class. The lady I spoke to who started it, she says she thought maybe 4 people would show up. She goes, the first time so many people showed up, they didn't have enough chairs for them. And I'm like, you know what? So there's an interest in this. And you don't even have to feel psychic to access tarot. So, but for me, I did have a book that I wrote. I shelved it. I had a lot of stuff that I just didn't want to deal with anymore with that. I started another one. I'm kind of like doing things on my own. If I ever put it out, I do. If I don't, it's for me. It's different than the other one. It's not it's something for everybody. It's something for everybody. And yes, there's something about cards in there, but it's something for the general population. I would love to do a podcast again, but on my terms.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would like to maybe put it up less often than once a week, because then I don't have to spend all week editing it, make it perfect. And I know if I do something, I'm going to want it to be aesthetically like perfect. It's going to have good sound quality, better than in the past. I want to make sure that it has really quality material. One of the things people have given me feedback for on my YouTube videos is when they go, they feel like they're never wasting their time, because every minute has something. There's not a lot of pauses. There's not a lot of, just nothing. I want to make sure every moment has something for people. But I will put out things, and I'm still I'm in a figuring out stage. But I'm enjoying my life. I'm enjoying my husband. He's super supportive. He will drive me to places. I do have a Kingston conference coming up, and I'm one of the presenters there, one of a few presenters that'll be up in Canada in 2026. And I have a really great topic for that. I love teaching online. I love bringing people to it. I love doing readings, just love it. But I wouldn't want to do it all day, every day, back to back, because this is just so much more to work than that. But I think my biggest goal, if I were to have a life purpose for me, it's taking the ordinary people, my hairdresser or this person or that, who's like, oh, I'd love to be able to do that. What do you do? I sat with my hairdresser in Florida, and we did just a couple of cards for her, and she's like, this has blown my mind. Like, I never knew this was possible. And the thing came to be like the card said it would. So she went and bought a deck, but then she didn't know what to do with it. That's what I want to be there for people, is I want an experiential thing that anyone can do. And how I do that has yet to be, it's seedling right now within me. It's yet to come out. So I'm expanding still, but it's a new world for me. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think
That's exciting.
You will
Thank
do
you
it.
both.
You're doing great. You have the quality to kindle something with people.
Oh,
But I
very
think
inspiring.
that's more than enough, and then that's up to them what they
Yeah.
do.
Thank you. That means so much to me, and I appreciate that. And that's what I hope to do. I just want to start the spark so that people will then take the flame and do their thing with it on their own. However it looks for them, they get to choose. It's their space.
Yeah.
Well, and that's true. Everybody's always on their own journey. So what advice would you give to somebody who is on, because we all have our origin story, with the cards. But what would you give as advice for someone? Because like you said, everyone is on their own journey and come to the cards for their own reason, their own way.
I think the advice I give to almost everybody that asks about it is just a blank notebook. Draw a card a day, but give it some context so you know what you're thinking about, and just start describing the card and what you see. and write it down and how it applies to like a free flow of thought. So that you can get to know them. I remember when I got my first deck of cards, it took me a year before I actually started working with them, because to me they looked, and this was a Rider-Waite version. They didn't look like I could tell what was going on in it. And it looked like coloring book pages, but the stories weren't clear to me. So over time, as I started studying what they meant, I started to see the emotion and what was going on in it. So I think that people just have to experience little bits. What does this card look like? What's happening? Make a story about it. Write a little story about it. But I would think that people can do it in something that's manageable. And again, we're going back to atomic habits. If it's just 2 minutes, you can do 1 or 2 minutes. That's fine. Just do that thing. And then, if you decide you want more, you can devour as much as you want. But I think the consistency is what's important. And if you can read, there are so many wonderful books, so many wonderful authors who can help guide us. But we always should start here, what we see in the card, and then go to the book. When I'm working with someone, one of the things I love to do is when they get a card, it's like, what do you see? What do you see in there? Like, what do you notice? And just see what they get, because you would be shocked at how off of what the typical meanings they might see, but it has perfect applications to their situation. And I'm like, they needed to see that. And that's like the Rorschach ink blot, or what you could do in therapy with someone. But it tells me a lot about what they're going through. And even that experience, if they can just a little bit every morning do that. But it's little bite-sized things. It doesn't have to be something that's revolutionary, but to experience a little bits at a time before you start doing readings for others, just get to know them.
Yeah. That's funny you said that. I actually just started using that deck again, the Rorschach Tarot deck, where it's just ink blots for each one. Because then I have my clients, what do you see in the ink blot? And then you reveal what it is. And it's always like the other day, somebody said, oh, looks like a bumblebee busy at work. And it was the 9 of Swords.
Wow. I've not seen that deck, but now I want to look at it and see what that card looks like.
I love the Rorschach Tarot, I said it wrong, but yes, I love that deck. It is so great to use with people because you're seeing exactly what they're seeing, and then you reveal what the card is. And it's just amazing what, the reading comes out in that. I love that deck. It's called Hidden Waters.
You send me a picture of that card. I want to see what it looks like. Or maybe you can post it at the end of this video.
Oh, yes. Oh, I can do that. Because what was the other one? The other one was the 2 of Swords, and everyone's like, because I put it in my Facebook group, and they're like, it looks like somebody's coming out and they're about to go on a journey. And it's the 2 of Swords. So it's like how you see yourself taking that blindfold off and moving forward. It's such a great deck to work with. It really is.
Really? Wow.
Hidden Water. Well, it's Hidden Water. Yeah, it's Hidden Waters Tarot. It's not actually, it's called, that's the name of the deck. It's the Hidden Waters Tarot. And I love it so much because I originally got it because somebody was like, you see things differently, you should get this deck. And I'm like, what is this deck? And I had to get it.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, that's very clever.
Yeah. Because you reminded me of that deck when you said that. It's like, yes, because somebody actually took what you said, put it in a deck.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you to both for having me here today.
Yeah, it was an amazing conversation. So really, thank you for your time, Donnaleigh.
I'm grateful for you both. Thank you.
A lot of luck. I hope that you will be wanting to come back in the future, because I feel that we have never said enough that we can always bring up some new things, and that we also want to support your mission. So if you want to,
thank you so much. I so appreciate that. I love your work, and so my heart is open. And if you guys ever need anything in the future, reach out to me. I just love what you're doing, and I'm happy you came back to the cards in your own way.
It will be in my way, but supportive, and also in the community and all that. So we will do great things, in that regard. And we have to be supportive for each other also, because we come in in a strange era with all that AI and ChatGPT stuff, there will be a lot of content about, and that will be,
Yes.
we will have competition from that, but we have to stay genuine to our human capital in that regard, because now we have to make the difference. Because there will be, we will have competition from all that, but really, to be honest, there will be a lot of crap. So a lot of people can now make a book in ChatGPT and ask about tarot cards or whatever, divination or mythology, but that's not really quality information, but we will have competition from that. So, but we have to be supportive for each other, to find ways to build a community, to support each other, to really stay ahead of that, because I know and I feel that we will win after all, but we will have competition from this. Also for people who are in artistic professions, creators, content creators, authors and all that, there will be a lot of competition from crap in that regard. Not
stolen artwork.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
we have to be supportive for each other for that regard, and we have to make one front. And we will succeed, I'm sure of that. But we will go ahead of strange time, I think.
And I know. Sometimes it's a sad thing because everyone's so inspiring. Like, that's why I love your work too. So inspiring, and you have your own individualistic way of putting it out there. So I'd love to always see more.
Thank you. I so appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Really is enough room for everybody. And there are different accents, different nuances to the language and how it's used. Because I really do think of Lenormand as like semantics. It's like a language. And different dialects, different areas and regions use different dialects. And each one works.
I know that,
Oh, yes.
I would say for myself that I am a traditionalist reader, but that's not my identity. That's something how I've fancied it. And in the end, I always struggled with being spiritual and all that. So I like things to be authentic. So I really wanted to know what is the real, how was it meant to be? But I know that everything works. Everything works.
Yeah, it's all, even before I did Lenormand, I read crystals. And what I realized when I learned Lenormand is the crystals had all the same attributes as the Lenormand cards. Yeah. So when you throw them down, you'd have the house and the home and then this and that. And it's all, it might have a different system of clusters of where things landed, but it all works. It's just, it's, it's a language.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Let's round it up here.
With reading.
All right, thank you both.
Very thankful for your time, Donnaleigh.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the invitation.
In return, please ask. And let's make a real great community, support each other, and bring the light in the world. That's so much more important than all those big egos and all that.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your time. We will promote this. And we will make sure that your voice is heard.
Thank you to both. Thank you, Bjorn. Thank you, thanks, Morgan.
Yes, thank you. It's always good to see you.
We keep on short notice, so we will let you know whenever we will kick things in the air. So we will stay tuned.
Okay. You two take care. Appreciate this invitation.
Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.